We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. It is Thursday night, the start of week 8. We got the Baltimore Ravens at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight. I've been looking forward to this game all week. I'm not going to lie. Both teams in this game coming off extremely weird weeks. The Buccaneers obviously down extremely bad heading into this game. If Tom Brady loses tonight, it will be the worst record he has ever had through the first 2 months of a season in his 23-year career. I mean, this is an all-time low, potentially, for Tom Brady on prime time tonight. They are slight favorites at home against the Ravens tonight. A lot to break down tonight. Going to be getting to as many of the Thursday night start-sit questions as always. Love the app. Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate that, man. If you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, you're missing out, guys. You got to check it out. It's going to help you with all your start-sit decisions, all your trade decisions, any daily fantasy decisions, player prop decisions. I mean, there's no better place than the WalterPicks app. So, Jordan, I appreciate that shout. Can you pick 3? Godwin, Hopkins, Pollard, Dalvin Cook. Yeah, with Zeke trending towards not being fully healthy, you have to plan on starting Pollard this week. If Zeke is out, Pollard is a top 5 running back in fantasy football this week. He's above Dalvin Cook. I'd prefer him over Chris Godwin and Hopkins. I'd prefer Pollard over all these guys if Zeke is out. Even if Zeke plays, though, he's not at 100%. Pollard is going to lead that backfield in snaps, just like he did last week. So I want Pollard, even if Zeke plays. I'd probably bench Hopkins, I think, in this one. I do really like the Vikings coming off the bye as well. Hey, Sam, I traded Amon-Ra, Sutton, and Goddard for Jamar Chase and ETN. It's not a dub, man. Max, it's not a dub with the Jamar Chase injury. It's actually a pretty massive L, I would say, even though ETN is maybe the best player in the trade. I would argue Amon-Ra is probably the best player in the trade. Evans, Tony Pollard, or ETN. I know it's a great situation. Yeah, it is a great situation. And I would bench Mike Evans in this one. I would play Tony Pollard and ETN. I think you just need to be starting both of those guys. We are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. Why bench Ravens defense? Yeah, so I do think if you're going to play defense tonight, it is the Ravens defense. But I'll tell you why I wouldn't play the Ravens defense. Let me pull this up really quickly. I know that the Buccaneers have allowed a lot of sacks. I'm pulling up the numbers right now. Rachaad White going to go crazy? Probably not. He's probably not going to go crazy. He only had 1 catch last week. I do like Rachaad White as a player, but the volume's not there. It's still Leonard Fournette's backfield. Fournette did see his lowest snap percentage of the season last year. Rachaad White did see his highest snap percentage of the season last week. Sorry, did I say last year? Last week. But I don't think this is the big blow-up Rachaad White game. I personally would be pretty surprised. I'm looking at the defenses. Defenses have not done great against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in fantasy football, at least, even though the Bucs haven't scored very many points. Only one defense has more than 10 points against the Bucs this season, and that was actually the Green Bay Packers. Most defenses under 6 fantasy points. That's why I would not start the Ravens defense tonight. I will get to as many start-sits as I can. Shout out to everyone in the TikTok live. Make sure you smash the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Guys, if Tom Brady loses tonight, it will be the worst start he's ever had in the first 2 months of the season in his 23-year career. He's only a 1.5 point favorite at home in this game. The Ravens are coming off a pretty ugly win. They did win against the Browns, but I did go back. I did rewatch the Ravens game. I did rewatch the Bucs game from last weekend. Both games, honestly, were really ugly on the offensive side of the ball. I do think both offenses bounced back in this game, but it was really, really concerning for the Ravens last week how little they threw. I think they might have gone into that game with the mindset of, we're playing the Browns defense. The weakness on the Browns defense is the run defense, so we're just not going to throw. They threw the ball only 16 times last week in a close win against the Cleveland Browns, but they were trailing in that game. Still only throw the ball 16 times. Lamar Jackson's thrown the ball at least 29 times in every game this season. Until last week, he only throws the ball 16 times. The reason I'm a little bit concerned about this, and I do think this is something to monitor, is Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman both dealing with injuries. And my biggest worry here with the Ravens offense is that they don't have as much confidence as usual in passing because they just know Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman are not 100% healthy. And so they're not going to throw as much. That would be really bad, I think, for the Ravens offense. Overall, I think it'll slow games down a lot. And I don't think that's a very good strategy against the Bucs defense, whose the clear strength of the Bucs defense is stopping the run. That has been the strength of the defense for a while. They are without 2 or 3 of their top secondary pieces tonight. Again, I mean, their secondary is really, really weak, but they still are pretty solid at stopping the run, though I will say I still like Lamar Jackson's rushing prop tonight. And I think that the props tonight have been set pretty well. I don't think there's any props that are glaringly a great value tonight, but I do like Lamar over 63.5 rushing yards. Here's why. First of all, Marcus Mariota, the only rushing QB that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have played against, he ran for 61 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But also Lamar Jackson has ran for at least 59 yards in every single game since week 2. So you're telling me Lamar's rushing, at least 58 yards. So you're telling me Lamar's rushing floor is 58 yards, and you set his prop line only 5.5 yards above that? I mean, that does seem like a pretty good one to take. So yeah, I do like Lamar Jackson over 63.5 rushing yards. Wide bench Ravens defense. There has not been a defense that had a big fantasy day against the Bucs. I know the Bucs offense has struggled. Still, the defenses they played against haven't had big days because Tom Brady very rarely is turning the ball over still. He's not throwing pick sixes, and you sort of need that upside if you're starting the Ravens defense. I would not start the Ravens defense tonight. I have Godwin and Evans start both. Yeah, start both. I mean, it's a high floor, high ceiling type of situation with that. I am taking the Bucs -1.5 in this game. I am 52% against the spread. I picked every single game against the spread this season on my Thursday night, Sunday morning lives. Make sure you guys hit the follow and subscribe button, by the way, because I'm live every single Thursday night. I'm live every single Sunday morning. So as long as you hit the follow button, you won't miss out. We make sure everyone's prepared for their fantasy matchups on these lives and for any bets that you're making. Picks against the spread, daily fantasy contest. We'll talk through some of that tonight as well. I did enter a few lineups into the showdown contest on DraftKings tonight. But I am taking the Bucs -1.5. I don't feel super strongly about this one, but I do feel like people are sort of sleeping on Lamar Jackson, on Tom Brady right now and the Bucs offense. I do think that they probably will bounce back tonight. If Tom Brady loses tonight, it'll be the worst record he's ever had in the start of the season. The first 2 months of the season, he's never had this bad of a start. Mike Evans or Dameon Pierce at flex. Yeah, I'm not benching Dameon Pierce. Tom Brady or Tua? Yeah, so I would go Tua over Tom Brady. There's not that many QBs I'm starting over Brady, but Tua is one of them. I have Tua as a top 5 option this week. He's in a really good matchup. He has 2 of the best receivers in the NFL. Here are the only quarterbacks I'm playing over Tom Brady really quickly. I'm playing Josh Allen over Tom Brady. Obviously, Jalen Hurts, Lamar. I'm playing them all over Tom. I'm playing Tua over Tom. I'm playing Joe Burrow over Tom Brady. I'm playing Kyler Murray over Tom. And then I'm playing Kirk Cousins over Tom Brady. That's it. End of list. Those are the only 7 guys I'm starting over Tom Brady. Otherwise, I do think you should start Tom Brady. I get it. It's tough to start him coming off of his last game, but they are going to score some points tonight. They are not going to score 0 points. And Tom Brady still had 290 passing yards last game. I mean, it was like the most yards in what is largely considered one of the worst offensive games of Brady's career, 290 yards. I mean, he's gone over 240 yards in every single game since week 3. The passing attack for the Bucs, guys, has really come back to life in terms of the volume of passes. So it's not going to be surprising if the Buccaneers do have some very high-scoring games. They're throwing enough passes to score a lot of points. They've thrown the ball at least 49 times in 3 of their last 4 games. This is the type of passing volume we were used to seeing with the Bucs. We didn't see it in the first few weeks because there's injuries to the pass catchers, but they're healthy now. So yeah, you got to trust in the Bucs passing attack. Again, I would start Kirk Cousins over Brady. I would start Tua over Brady. I would start Lamar over Brady. But I'm for the most part, I think you should start Tom Brady if you don't have some of those other options. I traded Cooper Kupp and Cooks for Debo, Etienne, and Sutton. Did I win? If you're starting all 3 of those guys, I do think you probably won the trade. You definitely gave up the best player in the trade, but Debo is very, very good. And I'm very, very, very high on Travis Etienne rest of the season. I don't know how you couldn't be. Thank you for the gift in the TikTok live. Start St. Brownie, of course. You got to start St. Brown. I do think he's going to be back healthy this week. Such a brutal run for Amon-Ra last week. I mean, getting hit in the head sort of after the play very early on in that game. That was tough to see. Should I start Marquise Goodwin if Metcalf is out? Yeah, Goodwin's on the sleeper radar. He's definitely not like a must start, but he's certainly on the sleeper radar and can be started. And he's one of these guys. He has the speed that he could have one big play that makes his whole fantasy day. What's good, Sam? First like of the live. Hope your week has been good so far. Kyle, my week has been great so far. Hope your week has been great as well. It's London week again. Yeah, we're on London time this Sunday. Set your alarms, guys. London time this Sunday. So you got to wake up a little earlier to set your lineup. Should I pick up Duvernay and start over guys like Judy, Thielen, Boyd, or Ayuk? No, I don't think I'd start Duvernay over any of these guys, especially with Bateman back in the lineup. I'm pretty skeptical of Bateman tonight too, though. I got to be honest. And again, one thing I'm definitely going to be watching closely tonight is just how much the Ravens are willing to pass, because their last game felt so much different than all of the games that they've had so far this season. And the numbers back it up too, just watching the game. And again, I go back, I rewatch every game at least once. And going back and watching that Ravens game from last week, it felt like an entirely different offense almost. It felt like they went into that game knowing Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman weren't at full health, knowing that the weakness of the Browns defense was against the run. And they just went into that game saying, we're not going to pass unless we really need to. They threw the ball only 16 times last week. I mean, that is close to an Atlanta Falcons Marcus Mariota type stat line. 16 passing attempts is a joke. I mean, every other game this season, the Ravens have thrown the ball at least 29 times. Last week, only 16 passing attempts. That's definitely something to watch really closely tonight. We could be seeing a shift in the Ravens offense going back to a much more run-heavy attack like we've seen in years past. All right. I still do like the Lamar rushing prop, though. Again, I think that's the safest one. Foreman or Henderson. I assume Foreman. If I were to, yeah, it is Foreman. It's Foreman. Henderson is a huge question mark this week. Henderson versus Edwards. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Gus Edwards is a must start. I don't think he's a must start. I think that Gus Edwards is a guy that if I had him in fantasy, I was trying to sell him this week coming off a 2-touchdown game. Gus Edwards is not going to catch passes. So he needs to score touchdowns in PPR leagues to return value. He scored 2 last week, but we also know Lamar will steal touchdowns. We also know the other running backs will be involved. So we have a running back in a committee who doesn't catch passes and isn't guaranteed to get the goal line carries. I mean, that just is the definition of a risky running back in fantasy football. Last week, Gus Edwards had 16 carries. He only played about a third of the snaps, though. He had 0 catches, 66 yards. He did score twice. He was a top 10 running back last week. But again, I'm not counting on Gus Edwards this week. I think I would prefer Darrell Henderson over Gus Edwards personally. I do think, let me see we do have in the WalterPicks app, Darrell Henderson is ranked ahead of Gus Edwards as well. By the way, if I don't get to your start sit, and I will try to get to as many of the Thursday night start sits as I possibly can on this live stream, go to the WalterPicks app. It's the best place to go to answer your start sit questions, to analyze trades, to set DFS lineups, to see what player props you want to wager on. So check out the WalterPicks app, especially if I can't get to your start sit. It also takes into account your custom league settings, which a lot of times I can't take into account on these live streams. All right. Let's get to some more of these questions in the YouTube, in the TikTok lives. Should I start Paris Campbell, Gus Edwards, or Cortland Sutton? Pick one. Yeah, definitely Sutton for me. It does sound like Russ is going to play. I'm not buying in yet to the Paris Campbell thing. And I was really high on Paris Campbell going into the season. I thought he could be this year's Rashad Penny. I thought he had a lot of Rashad Penny-like characteristics where he could never stay healthy, extremely athletic, is in a role that he should see volume. I have Paris Campbell on a lot of best ball teams, and he's coming off a really good game. He was used a ton last week, but I also have no faith in Ellinger. I was pretty shocked by the Matt Ryan decision, which apparently came from Jim Irsay, the owner, which also just sounds like a horribly run organization. But yeah, I'm not all in on Paris Campbell at all. Still, I need to see it a couple weeks in a row from him before having any faith, especially with the quarterback change. Hey Sam, how's your day? It's going great, man. It's going great, Christopher. We got a great football game that it's going to be on our TV screen in literally less than 1 hour. Do I accept? I trade Hunt and Lazard for Jamal Williams and Juju. Yeah, I would do that one. The only reason I would hesitate at all on that is it does feel like there's a decent chance Kareem Hunt gets traded. Sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. I'm going to sound ridiculous, but Dalvin Cook or Lenny tonight, I don't think that sounds ridiculous to me at all. I personally would be going Leonard Fournette over Dalvin Cook. I do like Leonard a little bit more than Cook, but it's definitely close. For sure, it is close. I traded Montgomery and Thielen for Mostert. Thoughts? I don't love it. I mean, I don't think Mostert's that big of an upgrade over Montgomery, but you probably got the best player in the trade, so it's not terrible. Sam, I don't know how I feel about this. I traded Jacobs and Godwin for Justin Jefferson. Still have Eckler, Lenny, Kamara. Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing trade. That's an amazing trade, Brad. You clearly got the best player in the trade. I do really like Josh Jacobs. I do really like Chris Godwin, but you already had stacked running back room. Yeah, so I'm fine with that trade. You got the best player in the trade. Burrow or Brady? I'm playing Burrow over Brady. Let me run through it one more time. Here are the quarterbacks that I am playing over Brady. And again, I think Brady is in must-start territory for most people, but here are the quarterbacks I'm playing over Thomas Brady. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins. End of list. End of list. It's only 7 guys that I'm starting over Tom Brady. Any sleeper running backs? I'm hurting right now. Yeah, so there's slim pickings at the running back position. I do think that let me pull this up here for a second. Kyren Williams is the guy that comes to mind when you say sleeper running back. He is. I don't know if he's playing this week. I don't know if he's come off IR officially yet, but he's definitely a good sleeper running back available in a lot of leagues. He was expected to be very involved in the Rams offense week 1, and then he got hurt, and we haven't really seen him since. And I have a lot of skepticism about Darrell Henderson. He has not looked great this season. It doesn't feel like they have a lot of faith in Darrell Henderson being the guy. I could easily see Kyren Williams, again, who's available in almost every single league. I could see him coming back and out-snapping Darrell Henderson pretty quickly. So, yeah, I do like him as a sleeper running back to go add if you are really desperate at running back. Who do I trade Chase for? I don't know what to do. Yeah, so, I mean, Joe, unless you're down really bad, like you're clearly out of the playoff hunt right now, I wouldn't be trading Ja'Marr Chase at this current moment. If you can get a starter back for Chase, you should probably do that, though, at this point. It seems like there's a real chance, guys, with this Ja'Marr Chase injury that he's out throughout most of the rest of the fantasy season. It said 4 to 6 weeks was the timeline they gave, but some other timelines were actually longer than that. Sounds like they're being a little optimistic about Ja'Marr Chase's injury, and it might not go that way. So I would definitely trade him for a starter if you can. How's it going, Sam? It is going great, man. Do I trade Pitts and Romeo Dobbs for Schultz? I'm 2-5, and I got Geno. Yeah, I mean, here we are. It's week 8, and we're trading Pitts and another piece to get Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, by the way, I had him as a must bench last week. That was a little bit of a mistake. He did have a decent fantasy day. He finished as the number 12 tight end. Last week, he had 49 yards, 5 catches. He continued to not look healthy, which was concerning, but he did get through the game. I would prefer Dalton Schultz over Kyle Pitts, so I'm okay with the trade. I am okay with this trade. It doesn't sit well with me, but I am okay with it. At this point, Kyle Pitts is pretty much toast. Happy Thursday. Is it a bad idea to trade Saquon for a few other starters? I'm 5-2, and having so much value tied into one guy scares me. Yeah, if you are getting multiple high-end starters, you can definitely consider it, but be careful trading away Saquon Barkley if you're 5-2. But I would, if you are 5-2, Philip, the other thing I would do is look ahead. Look ahead to the playoff schedule. I posted a few videos already. I think I have a video on TikTok a few videos ago of guys that have really good playoff schedules. RIP, Breece Hall was in that video. But there's some players that just have an amazing smash schedule in the playoffs. Derrick Henry's one of them. Again, this season, Lamar Jackson's actually one of them. Again, this season too. I would look into that because if you're going to trade one of your best players away and you're 5-2, you think you're going to make the playoffs, you should be planning for the playoffs because the playoffs in fantasy football matter way more than the regular season. Once you're in the playoffs, all that matters is winning in the playoffs. I mean, that's just how it's set up. The playoffs are significantly more important. So you should think about that with your trades, especially once you think you are in the fantasy football playoffs. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. We're live every single Thursday night, every single Sunday morning. Fire up Cade Otton. Yeah, I'm not like the biggest Cade Otton fan. I do think any tight end, if you're really desperate, can be considered. And Cade Otton's one of these guys where he did have 10 points last week, which was top 10 tight end. Last week, he had 64 yards on 5 targets, 4 catches. He did play 80% of the snaps. Cade Otton is not a must bench. I mean, he's certainly a fringe start. I don't think he's a must start over some of the more elite tight ends. But yeah, Cade Otton, you could argue, is a top 10 tight end this week in an offense that throws the ball a ton. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. This is going to be a very good Thursday night game. If Tom Brady loses tonight, it will be the worst record he has ever had through the first 2 months of any season. 23 years in the NFL, the worst start to his season ever in a season. If Tom Brady loses tonight, that is part of the reason I am taking the Bucs -1.5 in this game. Don't feel super strong about this one. I am 52% against the spread this season, I have a hard time thinking that Brady doesn't bounce back after 2 really, really bad games. I know the offensive line is still banged up. The secondary for the Bucs still pretty banged up as well. I do like the rushing prop for Lamar Jackson tonight, though. That is the free player prop on the live tonight. Is Lamar Jackson over 63.5 rushing yards. He has at least 58 rushing yards in every single game since week 2. That's a pretty good floor for a line set at 63.5. So I do like that line a decent amount. All right, let's get back to some of the start sits in the questions in the comments. You have the best fantasy advice, Sam. Thanks, man. I do appreciate that. Pick 2, Fournette, Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, or Dalvin Cook. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a really tough one. I don't want to be benching any of these guys, really, but I think you have to be starting Kenneth Walker, and I kind of feel like you got to start Leonard Fournette as well. I actually think Stevenson projects better than Fournette and Cook, but I do think Damien Harris will be a little bit more involved than he was last game. I do think there's some risk there with the Pats offense in general that's not as much there for Fournette tonight. I do think Fournette is a pretty solid start tonight. Rachaad White or Eno Benjamin, full PPR. Yeah, I'd probably go Rachaad White here. Rachaad White actually is coming off his highest snap share of the season. He didn't do much with it, but he did play 43% of the snaps last week. It was the lowest snap share of the season for Fournette. It wouldn't shock me if that trend doesn't continue tonight, though. The game did sort of get away from them late in that game, which definitely played into that. But yeah, I do like Rachaad White a little bit more than Eno Benjamin. Hey, Sam, hope you're doing well and you're enjoying your Thursday. It's been a great Thursday, man, because I've been hyped all day for this Thursday night game. It's going to be a very, very entertaining game. We got Lamar Jackson, who's started the season so hot in 2 of his first 3 games. It looked like he was on another MVP type campaign. And then 4 straight games now for Lamar. Pretty disappointing, especially from a fantasy football perspective. Lamar Jackson has not returned value in the past 4 weeks. He has not had a game over 20 points since week 3. The other thing to watch out for in this game from the Ravens, and another part of the reason that I am taking the Bucs against the spread in this game at home, is the Ravens their offense looked really, really different last week from all the other weeks. They threw the ball only 16 times last week in a close game against the Browns, a game that they were losing at points. They still only throw the ball 16 times against the Browns. Now, the Browns, their weakness is against the run, so maybe that played into it. Also, Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, they don't seem to be at full health. They are both active tonight, which is a good sign for their health, but it's possible that they don't have as much faith in the passing game because they know their pass catchers aren't fully healthy. It's definitely something to monitor in this game, because if the Ravens only throw the ball 16 times in this game, I mean, there's almost no chance that they can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers also do match up pretty well with their strength of their defense being against the run. The weakness of the Bucs defense has been very much against the pass. The Buccaneers pass defense has been pretty bad this season. Last week, PJ Walker threw for 177 yards. The week before that, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett combined for over 200 yards. They really haven't played a real QB since week 4. And they also played Mariota back in week 5. He did run for 61 yards. Another reason I like the rushing prop for Lamar tonight. The secondary for the Bucs is pretty banged up. All right. Hey, Sam, I traded Mixon and Debo for CMC and DK. Walter says I won by a good amount, but I still don't feel great about it. What do you think? Yeah, so I would take CMC over Mixon, over Debo. I'm pretty high on CMC still. Obviously, there's a little bit of uncertainty there. He's on a new team. We have never seen him be on the 49ers outside of that one game this past week where, he was still just learning the playbook. I think CMC could easily be the number 1 running back rest of season. I am definitely worried, though, about the DK Metcalf injury for this trade. That's probably why I wouldn't feel great about it. DK Metcalf's injury, I think, it could be the reason this trade does not end up being a dub for you. Before the injury, though, I do think I would have called that a dub. I say him Dak or Brady. I'm playing Brady over Dak, yeah. So I hear the only quarterbacks I'm starting over Thomas Brady. The only quarterbacks starting over Tom Brady are Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins. End of list. I don't have Dak even in my top 12, I don't think, this week. Dak has a pretty tough matchup for Dak Prescott this week up against the number 3 best defense against quarterbacks this week. The Bears have been horrible against the run, really good against the pass. They've allowed the 3rd least yards to quarterbacks this season. Thoughts on DJ Moore rest of season? DJ Moore is a pretty solid option for the rest of the season. I think he's a solid wide receiver 2 with weekly wide receiver 1 upside. I don't know if there's a situation more stark in terms of the difference in talent from one player in the entire rest of the team than there is DJ Moore and the rest of the Panthers offense at this point. I mean, DJ Moore is just so clearly the most talented player that even in a bad offense, he's going to be a pretty consistent fantasy producer. They have to get him the ball. I mean, again, he's so much better than the rest of his teammates. So I do like DJ Moore a lot. Rest of season, he had 10 targets last week. He gets the Falcons this week too. He does have a pretty good schedule rest of season as well. I think DJ Moore is like a solid wide receiver 2 rest of season. Godwin, Sanders, or Mostert for slot. Yeah, you got to go Godwin, man. You got to go Godwin. You got to start Godwin tonight. You got to start Mike Evans tonight. You got to start Tom Brady tonight. In almost every situation, you got to start Leonard Fournette. Even though Mark Andrews is dealing with an injury, you got to start Mark Andrews. I think you absolutely have to start Lamar Jackson as well. I know Lamar has been disappointing in fantasy the past month. Hey, Sam, happy Thursday Night Football. Happy Thursday Night Football. This is going to be a fantastic game tonight. Is Ravens D a solid start? Also thoughts on over-under for this game. I don't like the Ravens D tonight at all. I've gotten a few questions about the Ravens defense tonight. I do not like them. The Buccaneers offense, which has been very disappointing. I mean, really disappointing over their last 2 games. But the Buccaneers offense has, their offense has not allowed very good defensive performances in fantasy still. Only one defense has more than 10 points against the Bucs this season in fantasy. So not a great matchup for the Ravens defense. I don't think they probably will get a few sacks in this game, but Brady just in the Bucs, they don't turn the ball over very much. They don't allow defenses to score very often. Last week, obviously, the Bucs failed to score a touchdown, 3 points against the Panthers, who are a bottom 3 team in the NFL. The week before that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just barely lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they did at least score some points in that game. They had 18 points. Brady threw for 243 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. But I mean, back to back, just embarrassing losses for the Bucs. And again, if Brady loses tonight, this will be the worst start to a season ever in his 23-year career. Pretty startling stuff, guys. If you're watching live on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. My thoughts on the over/under tonight. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards the over in this game. The over/under is 46 in this one, but it's the over/unders are so tough. Probably the toughest market to beat, even more so than the spreads, is the over/unders. But yeah, I'd probably hit the over in this game. I do feel like a bounce back is coming for both of these offenses. It could happen in the same game. Hey, Sam, start 2 RBs in a flex in full PPR. Gus Edwards, Chuba Hubbard, James Robinson, Darrell Henderson, and Adam Thielen. Yeah, so you definitely can't be trusting Chuba Hubbard. Doesn't look like he is fully healthy. You absolutely can't be trusting James Robinson either in his first game on the Jets. So yeah, I would certainly go with Gus Edwards and Darrell Henderson in this one. Actually, I would probably go Thielen over Gus. I'd probably go Henderson and Thielen over Gus Edwards. I do think the Vikings passing attack is something I'm buying into pretty heavily this week. Bateman or McLaurin, Terry McScorin, as I like to call him. Yeah, I would go McLaurin over Bateman. I'm a little bit skeptical of Bateman tonight. I'm a big fan of Rashad Bateman, but he doesn't seem to be fully healthy. He didn't play that many snaps last week in comparison to his usual workload. And coming off a short week, I'm just a little bit nervous about his usage. Tonight, he only played 54% of the snaps last week. Guys, he only ran 12 routes last week. Only 12 routes. Again, this was a close game against the Browns. This is what I'm saying about just keep an eye on this Ravens offense and their play calling tonight. Because in their last game, again, I go back, I rewatch every single game at least once. And going back and watching that Ravens game back again, I mean, it felt so much different than all their other games. They were not throwing. They threw the ball 16 times last week. Rashad Bateman only ran 12 routes last week. I mean, that is some Atlanta Falcons type numbers from the Baltimore Ravens in their last game. Gus Edwards or Devin Singletary certainly would go Singletary, 100%. Start 2 Pittman, Lockett, Mondre, Michael Carter, half PPR. Yeah, I'd probably go. I honestly do really like all 4 of these players. I'm a little nervous about Pittman with Ellinger. I'd probably go Lockett and Mondre in a half PPR. I do like running backs more in a half PPR 2. The WalterPicks app definitely will help with this one as well. This one feels really close to me. I do feel like just in generally speaking, running backs safer than receivers, especially in half PPR, non-PPR leagues. But Pittman and Lockett, I do think have a higher ceiling than Mondre and Michael Carter. But yeah, I would not be benching Mondre. I don't think I'd bench Lockett with DK Metcalf likely out as well. Always appreciate the help. Got you, Philip. Thoughts on Amon-Ra rest of season, top 10 half PPR wide receiver rest of season. Yeah, I actually do have some rest of season rankings already up right in front of me. And I will tell you where Amon-Ra lands in these rest of season rankings. I think he is outside. Yeah, he's outside the top 10. I actually have him like just in the back of the top 20, but I could easily see him being in the top 10. I still think he has that ceiling. Obviously, he's gotten some tough injury luck this season. At full health, Amon-Ra has done nothing but ball out. So I'm still pretty in on Amon-Ra rest of season. Amon-Ra, Lamb, or Debo, pick one. Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to have to pick one of those guys. I certainly want all 3 of them. I will say that I don't love the matchup for CeeDee Lamb this week, but I still feel like you kind of have to be playing CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott back. I probably would go CeeDee Lamb. Rashad Bateman or Mostert, full PPR. Yeah, I would lean Mostert over Bateman. I don't think Bateman's a must start tonight. Why start Andrews? Isn't he still hurt? Yeah, he is still hurt, but even at 50%, Mark Andrews is still better than probably every other tight end you're considering. So he's playing. I think you have to start Mark Andrews if he's playing. Mark Andrews had a horrible game last week. I think it was maybe his worst game in his fantasy career. He had, I think, a rushing attempt for 4 yards or something. 0 catches for Mark Andrews last week. The good news is he was out there a lot. He still played 90% of the snaps. Again, the Ravens did not throw last week. They threw the ball 16 times last week, which is by far the lowest they've thrown, the least amount of pass attempts they've thrown in a game this season. Every other game, they've thrown the ball at least 29 times. Help, please, Sam. I need to start one, Gallup, Romeo Dobbs, and Rachaad White, full PPR. Yeah, I would lean towards, I would probably lean towards Gallup here. I don't love Rachaad White tonight. He did play the most snaps he's played last week, but I think that partially had to do with the game just getting away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't trust Rachaad White tonight. Is Sanders, Goddard, Pickens for Pierce and Waller a good trade? Yeah, I do like it. I do prefer Pierce over Sanders. I don't really know what exactly to think about Darren Waller. It feels like he basically just hasn't played this whole season. Darren Waller has a little bit of lost season going on. He has played in 4 games, so he's played in about half the games this season. Excuse me. He's played in. Thank you. He's played in. Bless you. Thank you. He's played in 4 games this season. That's Darren Waller. He has under 10 points though, under 12 points in 3 of those 4 games. But yeah, I do think Goddard is better than Waller. So it is a fair trade. I don't hate it. Don't love it. Hey Sam, Bateman or Jacoby Myers? Definitely Jacoby Myers. Got to be Jacoby Myers. Trade Sutton, Judy, and B-Rob for ETN and Dylan. Guy I'm trading with his 4 receivers hurt, so I feel he's desperate for receivers. Thank you, brother. I got you, Philip. Yeah, I would do this. I would definitely do this one. ETN is, I think, by far the best player in the trade. I really do think there's a good chance that Travis Etienne wins leagues this season. Guys, Travis Etienne checks literally every single box of being a league-winning fantasy asset. One, he is a elite pass catcher. Travis Etienne, this season, he leads the NFL in yards per touch. He has only a 10% target share. Only a 10% target share this season. That's likely going to go up with James Robinson out of the picture. And he's been a much better runner than we expected. He's number 3 in the NFL at the running back position in yards per reception. So again, elite pass catcher. He's now going to be seeing close to a 100% snap share. Last week, 80% of the snaps, he saw 14 carries, 5 targets. He only caught one of those. Only one of those 5 targets he caught. 5 targets, 14 carries. He's now got 3 straight games over 100 yards. I mean, Travis Etienne is a league winner. If he stays healthy, he's probably going to be a league winner. There's just not very many running backs that can catch passes and are going to be out there almost every single snap and that are as efficient as Travis Etienne's been this season. Gus or Foreman? Thanks, bro. Yeah, I'd go Foreman over Gus. I'm not buying into the Gus Edwards hype at all. I'm definitely very, very nervous for Gus. Tonight, it's not a good matchup for Gus. I would go Foreman over Gus. Thoughts on Cooks fantasy-wise if he is traded to Packers versus Chiefs versus Rams? Do you think his value will go up or down if traded? It definitely depends on the situation. I do feel like it's very unlikely that he goes to the Chiefs at this point. They did just trade for Kadarius Toney. I think his value would go up as a part of the Packers. I don't know how I feel about him going to the Rams, but it probably would go up there as well. It's a little bit tough, right? Because he's not going to be the top option on any of these teams anymore, but these teams are also just so much better. And the quarterback situation is so much better. What is your take on Boyd now that Chase is out? I mean, Boyd is all of a sudden, he's actually had a tremendous season for those of you that have been brave enough to start Tyler Boyd. He's an amazing season. He's got 2 games over 20 points. He's got 4 games over 12 points. He's had actually a pretty solid floor this season as well. Now that Ja'Marr Chase is out of the picture, I do think it helps T. Higgins more. I think T. Higgins is maybe a top 5 option now in fantasy football with Ja'Marr Chase out. But I think Boyd is still like a top 30 option now. I think he was more like top 45, top 50 option with Ja'Marr healthy. I think he's more like a top 25, top 30 option with Ja'Marr out. So yeah, I do think Boyd is definitely in the must-start territory now in fantasy football. Should I do this trade? JT, Mike Evans, and Boyd for Jacobs and Justin Jefferson? Walter says yes. This is my last question. Have a good night, Sam. Enjoy the game. Yeah, JT, Mike Evans, and Boyd for Jacobs and Justin Jefferson. I do like the trade. I do think you're getting maybe the 2 best players in the trade. And again, Boyd does get a big boost with Ja'Marr out of the picture for at least the next 4 weeks, it sounds like. I do like Mike Evans, but not as much as Justin Jefferson. I do like Jonathan Taylor, but Josh Jacobs is probably better at this point in fantasy than Jonathan Taylor. Josh Jacobs having an absolutely monster season. So yeah, I do think I would do that trade. Sam, is it the time these Godwin targets turn into TDs tonight? Also, do you expect the Packers to trade for a receiver? I mean, the Packers should trade for a receiver, so it wouldn't surprise me. But I mean, the Packers should have gone after a receiver a lot over the last year. Their plan of attack was Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. If I recall correctly, I feel like they took Christian Watson over George Pickens, which looking back was an absolute joke of a decision. But yeah, I do think, going back to your first question, I do think the Godwin targets probably do turn into a TD tonight, or if not tonight, very, very soon. Chris Godwin has been a beast, really, this season. I think like a low-key beast. He's been over 10 points in 4 straight games. He has at least 40 yards every game. He has not gone over 100 yards once, though, and he doesn't have a single touchdown. He does have at least 1 red zone target in every game. He's out there almost every single snap. He's running a ton of routes, and he's seeing a ton of targets. He has at least 10 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. In one of those games, he got hurt, and he still had 6 targets in that game. So yeah, I do like Chris Godwin. I think a lot more than the average person. I still think he's an elite fantasy asset. I still think he's a must-start player. And yeah, it's only a matter of time. Probably within the next 3 hours, we see a Chris Godwin touchdown. I am in on that. I actually don't hate that prop. I don't know what the line is, but I do think Godwin is due for a TD tonight. What do I do with Ja'Marr? Also thoughts on Tony. If you have Ja'Marr, there's not much you can do, man. I mean, it's a bad situation if you have Ja'Marr. He's significantly injured. He's out at least 4 weeks. It sounds like it could be more than 4 weeks. That's the majority of the remaining fantasy season. I mean, it's a really, really bad situation. I would say, Joel, if people don't realize in your league how bad it really is, I would be trading Ja'Marr for basically any starter at this point, straight up. Also, thoughts on Tony. Yeah, I did add Tony in a bunch of my leagues. I think there's interesting upside there. He also tweeted something, then deleted it, that he's actually not hurt and his hamstrings are fine. I don't really buy that. I mean, that doesn't really check out very well with what the case has been his whole career. He's probably not healthy. I've been saying for a while, I think Kadarius Toney, for those of you that remember him and are old enough to remember him, is Percy Harvin 2.0. The dude is extremely talented. He is one of these very unique players with the ball in his hand. Just get the ball in Kadarius Toney's hand, and he's probably going to do something pretty special. But he has, I mean, just horrible injury problems. And it's tough to see that turning around. So, yeah, I think Toney, high ceiling, worth an add in all leagues, but his floor is still really, really low. Again, if he gets healthy, though, and he's an active part of the Chiefs, I'm excited to see how they could use him. Travis Etienne, Leonard Fournette, Dameon Pierce, Tony Pollard, start 3 of them. Yeah, I actually do think I might bench Fournette in this one, and I don't think I've told anyone to bench Fournette yet tonight. But yeah, I do have Travis Etienne ranked ahead of him. I do have Dameon Pierce ranked ahead of him as well. And who's the third option here? Yeah, Travis Etienne for sure is ranked ahead of him. So yeah, I think you do need to start all three of those guys. I think you bench Leonard Fournette. I have both TB and Lamar. Yeah, I'm starting Lamar over Tom Brady for sure. I'm starting Lamar over Brady. Lamar's floor is just so solid with the rushing. Lamar has gone over 55 rushing yards every single game since week 2. That's why I do like his rushing prop tonight. Over 63.5 rushing yards for Lamar. Again, he's gone over 55 rushing yards every game since week 2. That's a pretty good floor for a 63.5 line. Evans is playing. Yeah, Mike Evans is playing. Jacoby Myers and Harrison Bryant for Deontay Johnson. I don't hate that, Avery. I do like Jacoby Myers a lot, though. I will say I do like Jacoby Myers a lot. I still think I'd prefer Deontay Johnson, though, rest of season, especially with how much the Steelers have been throwing it. And also talk about another player who, I mean, is due for a TD. 0 touchdowns. 0 touchdowns for Deontay Johnson this season. Deontay Johnson has the 4th most targets in the NFL. The 4th most targets in the NFL. The 6th most air yards in the NFL. And he has 0 touchdowns. Yeah, I do like buying low on Deontay Johnson. I do like that trade, Avery. Shout out our Commanders creator in the TikTok live. By the way, if you are watching live on TikTok, smash the follow button. I'm live every single Thursday night, every single Sunday morning. Gus Edwards or Najee. I would go Najee over Gus. Hurts or Lamar. Yeah, I'm not benching Jalen Hurts, even for Lamar. By the way, if Tom Brady loses tonight, this is the worst start to a season he's ever had. He has never been 2 games under 500. Is Wandale a guy that can become a legitimate starter rest of season? Tony trade excites me. Been riding with you since 2020, and I would def say you're the fantasy guru. 1 overall in standard and PPR leagues. Philip, thank you, man. I do appreciate that. I am excited about Wandale, and I think this Tony trade just gives you even more confidence that Wandale is going to be the top receiver for the Giants, and he's looked pretty good, guys. He did pick up an injury in the last game, but he had 6 catches in the first half, 50 yards in the first half. He's now had back-to-back games with at least 11 fantasy points. In the first game that he played in, back in week 6, he only ran 10 routes. He had 3 catches and ended up scoring a touchdown. But last week, I mean, what we were all hoping for and expecting, his snap share jumped tremendously. He played almost 70% of the snaps last week for the Giants, even though he picked up an injury. At full health, guys, Wandale Robinson is going to be an every down player for the Giants, and he's going to be maybe their second most talented player on offense after Saquon Barkley. So, yeah, I do think that he can be a reasonable asset in fantasy football rest of season, and I certainly think he should be rostered in all leagues. I would take Wandale over Tony rest of season as well. I think Tony does have exciting upside, but, I mean, there's just such little confidence in his ability to stay healthy. And also, if you're the Chiefs and you are on your way to the NFL playoffs, I mean, you're just incentivized to try to keep Tony healthy and not use him too much, which is not good for fantasy. Players that have missed practice both days so far this week include Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Ezekiel Elliott, Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard. Jamar Chase is hurt. It sounds like Russ is going to play this week. No big injuries tonight, though. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, they are not fully healthy. It is definitely something to monitor in this game, because last game, it felt like the Ravens were scared to throw because of the injuries to the pass catchers. Mark Andrews did play about 90% of the snaps still. Bateman was closer to 50% of the snaps. Bateman only ran 12 routes. Last game, threw the ball just 16 times. Baltimore Ravens threw the ball 16 times last game. That is half the amount they've thrown in basically every other game. They are both active tonight, though, but it is a short week. It's something to monitor, because if the Ravens can't throw in this game, I do think they will lose in this game. If you wanted a receiver, who would you trade Jamar Chase for? Yeah, I do think buying low on Deontay Johnson is a good one. We were just pulling up the numbers for Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson has the 4th most targets in the NFL. He has the 6th most air yards in the NFL. He has not scored a touchdown this season. I do like buying low on Deontay Johnson, who I still think has one of the safest floors in fantasy. I mean, we've seen it. Guys, he has not scored a touchdown this season, and he's still gone over 8.5 fantasy points in every single game. And again, he's top 5 in the NFL in targets. That really is what you love to see, especially if you're in a PPR league. He's averaging almost 10 targets a game. Truly elite stuff from Deontay Johnson. There is still an outside chance Chase Claypool gets traded before the deadline. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen at this point, but it's certainly still possible. That would be a bump for Deontay as well. Sam, Godwin or Amon-Ra this week. Also, can we see the receiver rankings? Don't have the rankings ready for this live. We'll have those on the Sunday live, but I will help you out with this. Brad, Godwin or Amon-Ra. Let me pull up my wide receiver rankings here that are in front of me. And yeah, I do think you got to go Godwin. I do think you got to go Godwin tonight. I do think he scores his first touchdown of the season tonight. Chris Godwin is seeing really elite elite usage in an offense that's throwing the ball a ton. I think you got to be playing Godwin. He also hasn't had a game over 100 yards yet. Wouldn't be shocked if that changes. Tonight, Chris Godwin has now back-to-back games with at least 12 targets. He's seen at least 10 targets in 3 out of his last four. Again, this team throws the ball a lot. They are back to their pass-heavy ways in this offense. I know they're coming off a game where they did not score against a bad Panthers defense, but they're going to score tonight. And they're going to continue to throw the ball a lot tonight, too, I think. So, yeah, I do like Godwin a lot tonight. I would play Godwin over Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I do really like. And I do think he bounces back this week as well. I have a tough time. Benching any 3 of these guys. I would probably lean in a PPR league, though. I'd probably lean Godwin over Ramondre Stevenson and over Aaron Jones. Gus Edwards or Chuba Hubbard. I would lean towards Gus. I don't have faith in Chuba Hubbard's health right now. Same, I have Chase and Debo. What should I do? I mean, just go cry. Just go cry. You got Chase. He's out for at least 4 weeks. You got Debo. He's not practiced in 2 straight days. I would go cry. I'd probably go pray a little bit. No, if you do have Chase, if you do have Jamar Chase, and you are not in the playoff picture right now in your fantasy league, you got to go talk to the teams that are locked into the playoffs in your league and sell low on Jamar Chase. Get someone that can help you get into the playoffs, because if you don't get into the fantasy playoffs, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters if you're not in the fantasy playoffs. You got to get in. Then you can start prepping for the playoffs. Bateman or Wandale Robinson. Yeah, this one's actually pretty close, I think. My gut says Bateman. My projections are telling me Wandale, though, and I understand it. Wandale Robinson, I think, will see more targets this week than Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman, again, he ran 12 routes last week. That does not give me much confidence in Rashad Bateman this week. He is definitely dealing with a foot injury. So yeah, I'm okay going with Wandale over Bateman. At full health, I certainly would go Bateman over Wandale. I would go Brandon Cooks over Bateman as well. Should I start Gus Edwards or Jamal Williams? I'd be on this on Sunday. Got you, Matt. Yeah, I would probably go with Edwards over Jamal Williams. I do think Swift is going to be back this week. Devontae Smith or Devin Duvernay with returning upside. Ooh, no, that's an interesting spin, man. That does, I think, change things a little bit. I mean, Duvernay's been a beast in the return game. I think he's been one of the best, if not the best, returners in the league this season. I know that the Cowboys returner, he's looked really good as well. But yeah, Devin Duvernay, if you get return yards, I mean, I think you might have to go Duvernay. It's a really good spot for Devontae Smith, but yeah, if you get return yards, Duvernay has a huge boost. Gus or Alec Pierce? Yeah, I'd go Alec Pierce over Gus. I would play James Conner over Gus Edwards. I am still pretty skeptical on James Conner. Hope you're doing good, Zan. Thanks, man. Would you start Gus Edwards or Michael Carter this week? I would definitely go Michael Carter over Gus Edwards, 100%. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. I'm live every single Thursday night. I am live every single Sunday morning. We got about 15, 20 minutes left in this live stream. The game is less than 30 minutes away. I'm starting to get excited, man. This is going to be a fantastic game. I love watching Lamar. This is such a huge spot for Brady. I mean, so much pressure on Tom Brady. I mean, how many times have we seen that story, though, of Tom Brady? A lot of pressure. And what does he do? He responds so well. Fournette, Sanders, or Mostert, pick 2. Please. Yeah, I would bench Mostert for Fournette and Sanders. Tyler Algier or Brian Robinson. I would go Brian Robinson over Tyler Algier. QBs and tight ends to buy low on. Last question. My brother said I have to work during this awesome matchup tonight. Yeah, Philip, that sucks, man. That does suck. Hopefully you're able to watch the game. Though sometimes you got to do what you got to do, man. It's a grind out there. And sometimes it just is what it is. But yeah, QBs and tight ends to buy low on. Yeah, so one quarterback, honestly, to buy low on, and it's probably too late at this point. I do think Lamar is an interesting QB to be buying in fantasy. I did acquire Lamar in one of my leagues. I sent, I think it was Deebo Samuel and one other piece. I think I forget who it was. Maybe it was Deebo and a bench player for Lamar and Mike Williams. Mike Williams obviously hurt now, which stinks. But yeah, I do like buying Lamar. Lamar has the best fantasy football playoff schedule among all quarterbacks. So he has that going for him. And that, to me, makes him a buy low as is. But he's also had a really disappointing last month of the season. Lamar has been under 18 fantasy points in 4 straight games. He has not been a top 10 quarterback for 4 straight weeks. And he's had some pretty good matchups in there. I am still a little bit worried about how little they passed last game. Again, only 16 passing attempts for Lamar. But yeah, I think he is an interesting buy low candidate right now. I do have faith in Tua. I think still more than the average person. I think he's an interesting buy low candidate as well. I mean, the Dolphins are just doing such a good job getting the ball into their best players' hands. And that's great news for Tua, who did look pretty good last week against, albeit a bad Steelers defense. And then tight ends to buy low on. I mean, all the tight ends you're buying pretty low on. I still think George Kittle is a guy that could take the leap into that top tier. He's coming off a big game, though. He was the number one tight end last week, so you're not really buying low on George Kittle at this point. He does have back-to-back games over 80 yards. Yeah, he's top 5 tight end over the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I guess that's not very much of a buy low. I am intrigued by Dalton Schultz and how much he was involved last week, though it feels like he is not going to be fully healthy this entire season. I do like one tight end that I am starting to be interested in is Harrison Bryant, David Njoku, buying low on them with the Deshaun Watson return too. Again, one of the things I think is an edge in fantasy, especially if you are high up in your standings in your league, is to start planning for the playoffs. And Deshaun Watson is going to be back for the fantasy playoffs. I do think that makes the pass catchers for the Browns pretty interesting. QBs to trade Tom Brady for. Again, I do like Lamar as a trade target for quarterback. He has the best fantasy football schedule among all quarterbacks. He plays the Steelers, I think, in the playoffs, maybe twice. He's some ridiculously good schedule for Lamar. What are my thoughts on Bateman tonight? Yeah, I'm nervous for Bateman tonight. I don't think he's a must start. I think he is a fringe start. He obviously can have a big play at any moment. That's the type of player Rashad Bateman is. He is extremely, extremely fast. I think he still is a very exciting player. I honestly think he's still better than people give him credit for. The reason I'm nervous for him is he's clearly not fully healthy. He only ran 12 routes last week. And I do think this is part of the reason they threw the ball so little last week. Only 16 passing attempts again for Lamar last week. That was by far the least he had in a game this season last week. But only 12 routes for Rashad Bateman last week. He still had 5 targets. He was targeted on almost half of his routes last week. But yeah, coming off a short week, even in what should be a good matchup, not a great secondary, very injured secondary tonight, I think Bateman is a really low floor, high ceiling option. I think he's a boom bust option in fantasy this week. So not a must start. Definitely could have a good game, but also could get close to 0 points in this one. Again, there's a chance that the Ravens stick to their low volume passing attack tonight. And if that's the case, I mean, bad news for Bateman, horrible news for Andrews, who also I don't think is at 100%. Should I do Kenneth Walker for D-Hop and Dallas Goedert? I would not do that personally. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be a league-winning player. Sup, Sam? Travis Etienne or Mondre, full PPR? Jackson, Travis Etienne, he is locked in to your starting lineup for the rest of the season. You don't even need to think about it. And Mondre is a really good player and a good asset in fantasy. I think we actually have him ranked top 10 in the Walter Picks out this week. But guess who we have ranked top 5? That's Travis Etienne. And I don't think there's any way around Travis Etienne not being in your top 5 rankings. Travis Etienne, I have him ahead of Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. I have him ahead of Christian McCaffrey this week. Etienne played 80% of the snaps last week. He's an elite pass catcher. Number 3 in yards per reception, Travis Etienne. He's number 1 in the NFL in yards per touch. And now he's about to be on the field basically every single snap. I mean, wheels up, man, for Travis Etienne. He also scored his first touchdown last week. He's going to have a monster back half of the season if he can stay healthy. Griffin, hey, Sam, could you please pick 2? Bateman, London, Alec Pierce, Gallup. We just cannot trust Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And Drake London, clearly good at football. Clearly going to be a very good receiver in the NFL. Clearly the top receiving option for the Falcons. But what does that really mean on a team that is not going to throw the ball? I mean, such a devastating game for the Falcons last week. And I couldn't have been more wrong about that game. I mean, I was half right, but also half wrong in the worst possible way in that Falcons game last week. I thought good chance the Bengals blow out the Falcons. Could be the first game all season where the Falcons are trailing by multiple scores. And that's exactly what happened. They were trailing by multiple touchdowns, basically the whole game. And they threw the ball still only 13 times. I mean, that is just so atrociously brutal for fantasy football. Last week, 14 routes for Drake London last week. 1 target, 1 catch, 9 yards. I believe similar numbers for Kyle Pitts, who had 2 catches. I do still think Kyle Pitts scored on that one play that was very tilting. He had a catch right at the goal line that I swear was across the goal line. But nonetheless, horrible game for Kyle Pitts, horrible game for Drake London. Not to their own. It really isn't on them. They just aren't on a team that throws the ball. They do not throw. They do not have passing plays in their playbook. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they can't be trusted right now. I would definitely play Bateman over all 3 of these guys. And then, yeah, the second option, I probably would go Gallup personally. I'm nervous for Ellinger on the Colts. I don't think he's good. I'm surprised with what they're doing there. But yeah, I do think I would probably go with Pierce and Bateman. Sam, I'm late, buddy. I got you, Joey. Gus tonight. Also, Bucs D. Thoughts? I have Colts too. Yeah, I would probably go Colts over Bucs. I don't love the Bucs defense. I don't love the Ravens defense tonight. I don't hate Gus tonight. I think he's a fringe start. He obviously was the lead back last week, saw 16 carries. He also, though, only played about a third of the snaps. And this isn't a good matchup for running backs. That shouldn't be surprising to anyone. The Bucs' strength yet again this season is against the run. That's not good for the Ravens. They've allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs this season. Deontay Foreman did have a good game against them, but he's the only running back over 100 yards. Gus Edwards not catching passes. He needs touchdowns. I'm not so confident those will come tonight. He did have 2 touchdowns last week. I'm benching Gus Edwards where I can. Hey Sam, could you please pick 2? Fournette, Pollard, Mostert, Chuba Hubbard, or Gus? Yeah, you got to go these first 2 guys. You got to go the first 2 guys. I mean, clearly tiers above the rest of these guys. And Zeke is not fully healthy. Huge news that Zeke picked up an injury last week. He is looking like he's on the wrong side of questionable this week. He has not practiced this week. But even if Zeke plays, he is not going to be the guy that leads that backfield this week. And all of a sudden, Tony Pollard, who's, I think, one of the most talented running backs, and he's been one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL over the last few years, really could be a top 10 option this week. He ranks number 4 in the NFL in yards per touch this season. And last week, he played 60% of the snaps. That was his highest snap share of the season. And if Zeke is out, he's going to be close to 80% of the snaps. I mean, huge. Tua or Burrow, I like Tua more than Burrow. Let me run through one more time. Again, the QBs I would play over Tom Brady. I do think Tom Brady should be started in most situations tonight. I would play Josh Allen over Tom Brady. I would play Jalen Hurts over Tom Brady. I'd play Lamar Jackson over Tom Brady. I would play Tua over Tom Brady. I would play Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, and Kirk Cousins over Tom Brady. That's the end of the list. Then I'm playing Thomas Brady. I'm not starting Burrow over Lamar. The only 2 quarterbacks I'm starting over Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, that's it. Otherwise, you got to start Lamar. I'm starting Lamar over Tua. I'm starting Lamar over Joe Burrow. I'm starting Lamar over Kyler. I'm starting Lamar over Kirk. I'm starting Lamar over Brady. I would not trust those guys. Help, Fournette or Cook. Yeah, I lean towards Fournette over Cook. It's certainly close, but I do like Fournette's workload. It was a weird game for the Bucs last week. A horrible game for the Bucs last week, but it led to the Fournette's really his least playing time of the season. Should I trade D-Hop for Swift? I have Lamb, A.J. Brown, Myers, Cooks, Judy, Derrick Henry, my only good running back. Yeah, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I think DeAndre Hopkins feels a little bit safer right now, but we also just haven't seen Swift in a while. And when he comes back, like, he should be healthy. They've really given him a lot of time, and that's probably actually a good thing. It might feel like a bad thing. It might feel like he was more hurt than people thought, but in reality, it might turn out to be a good thing that they really let Swift get back to full health, because at full health, DeAndre Swift is a top 10 running back in fantasy football. And he's still behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So yeah, I do like D-Hop for Swift straight up. Etienne or Fournette? I'm playing Etienne over Fournette. I'm playing Etienne over Fournette. I think Etienne is a top 5 running back option this week, and maybe even the rest of the season. Montgomery or Gus? I'm playing Montgomery over Gus. Gus or banged up Lockett. Yeah, I would go bang up Lockett over Gus, because also DK Metcalf's out. And so that's a pretty big deal for Tyler Lockett. Ravens inactives: Mike Davis, Tylan Wallace is out. Calais Campbell out tonight. So of the 8 Ravens players listed as questionable, 7 of them are active. Pretty interesting. I don't think the Ravens are at 100% health, though. I don't think Rashad Bateman's at 100% health. I don't think Mark Andrews is at 100% health. I still think you have to start Mark Andrews. I don't think you have to start Rashad Bateman, though. And I do think that probably played a role into why they threw the ball so few times. Last week, should I start Bucs kicker? Yeah, he's startable for sure. In this game, the over-under is 46. That's pretty high. Jones or Pollard? I'd play Pollard over Jones. I'm starting Pollard everywhere this week. Should I trade T. Higgins for JT? With the Jamar Chase injury, I don't really want to be giving up T. Higgins, but you're getting JT if you need a running back. I mean, it's a pretty good trade. I don't hate it. Devin Duvernay or Brandon Cooks? I would lean towards Brandon Cooks over Devin Duvernay. Devontae Smith or Gabe Davis? I'd probably go Devontae Smith in a really good matchup. I would play Devin Duvernay over Paris Campbell. I'm not buying into what Paris Campbell did last week. It was a great game. Obviously, I think it was the best game of Paris Campbell's career. I think he had 10 catches last week? At 12 targets, 10 catches, now back-to-back games with over 10 targets for Paris Campbell. But yeah, I'm not buying into that being a consistent thing for him, especially with Ellinger starting. And who knows, maybe Ellinger will like Paris Campbell underneath a decent amount, Tommy, but I do like Devin Duvernay more than Paris Campbell this week. Guys, that is my time. Let me recap really quickly my thoughts on this game and thoughts tonight. First of all, the Ravens, they looked very different last week than all their other games. Only 16 passing attempts for the Ravens last week. That's almost half the amount that they usually have. I'm watching that really closely tonight. I hope they get back to the more 30 pass attempt range, which is where they were basically every other game this season. But I do think it comes back to the Andrews and Bateman health. I don't think the Ravens win this game, though, if they throw the ball less than 20 times. I do, though, still like the Lamar Jackson over 63.5 rushing yards. He's had at least 55 rushing yards in every single game since week 2. That's a pretty good floor for a prop set at 63.5. I'm also, though, taking the Bucs minus 1.5. I don't think the Ravens are at full health in this game, and I don't think Tom Brady is going to roll over this season. We've seen it too many times with Brady being counted out and then having massive bounce back performances. Don't be shocked if that's what you see tonight. That's why I'm taking the Bucs against the spread. This would be the worst start to Tom Brady's career, worst start to a season in Tom Brady's career, in his 23-year career ever, if he loses tonight. That's my time, guys. I'll be back live as always Sunday morning. Time is the most valuable thing we have, so thank you for spending some time with me tonight. Enjoy the game tonight and have a good rest of your night and good luck. I'll see you all on Sunday morning.